Welcome to Work You Love, real stories of career change and fulfillment. This is the show where we share real stories of people who once felt stuck in their careers, made a change, and found work that lights them up. I'm your host, Danielle. I've worn a lot of hats in my own career, and my mission here is simple: to help you find work that you love. Each week, you'll hear inspiring stories and practical tools to stop feeling stuck and start building a career that truly fits you. So let's dive in. Hi, Kade. I'm so excited to have you on Work You Love. I think you have such an interesting story of transitioning into the film production industry. So my first question always is, what are you doing now and what do you love most about it?
Yeah. Also, thank you so much for having me. So, I work in film. I work specifically in the production office, which is I like to call it the brain center of any film. And why I love it, I would say definitely a high level of execution. And also, there is a genuinely incredible feeling when you come together on these projects and I see all these people who are so incredibly talented. I honestly kind of nerd out. Not so much with the actors, although there's moments of that, but just to see the behind the scenes, to see like special effects do these crazy gags or crazy stunt moves, or even the art department just putting the look and feel. I wish sometimes people could see all of the work that goes on behind the scenes. And then also the people. I mean, you will meet some of the craziest, most interesting people in this business.
Yeah, and for people who aren't familiar with the film industry at all, give us a little bit of insight into a film is being made. What are you doing on the back end of it?
Our job is to open the office. We make sure everything goes well from beginning to end. We make sure hair and makeup has got all their supplies ordered. We make sure camera has everything they need so they can do what they need to do well. If the director needs something like a very particular pencil, we answer to every single department on some level, making sure they're equipped.
Hmm. Cool. So it's all the logistics that no one thinks about in when producing a film. Can you talk a little bit about what you were doing before and what led you to make this career change?
Yeah, absolutely. I will start with a little bit more of a way back, very briefly, because it was a seed when I was younger, which was I was incredibly introverted growing up. But in high school, I got involved in theater, and that skyrocketed my confidence overall. So I was on the stage and I was terrible, but I had such fun doing it. But then I stepped backstage and I learned that I liked putting the pieces together, if you will. So fast forward for years, the job I had most recently before film, I had gotten to project manager at a streaming slash web development company. And then at some point, I started having the thought in my head that, I haven't applied these skills to something that I'm incredibly interested in yet. And I'm not getting any younger. Just what if I could do something different and something I'm interested in, which was the arts and then film, because film was a big part of my family growing up too. So I started researching. I found a school and I told myself if I could do a year online while working full time, I would hopefully make the jump. And I did. And my boss was very, very accommodating to that, where I worked remotely for that same company for a year. At some point, I had to stop going to school for a family medical issue. And so I dropped school completely, which was really sad because I was very close to being done with it. And after that, I don't know, I just had lost all motivation. I was very drained emotionally. And you know, the life crisis everyone has, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I lived with my friend for a time who was so gracious and so good to my heart to kind of get back on my feet. And then I did something really weird, which was I reached out to one of the professors that had taught me when I had gone to this film school. And I said, "Hey, do you have any jobs, PA jobs?" So a PA is a production assistant, and it is the lowest rung of any department on a film. Like, you're grabbing the coffee. You're kind of a gopher a little bit. Major respect to them. And even though I was a 30-something-year-old asking to be a PA, I told her that I would try coming for my vacation from my normal job for 2 weeks to PA, because that's very normal. Like, you can work for a few days as a day player. And she called me a month later and she said, "Hey, so I think this was like a Tuesday. I got the call. She said, 'Hey, I've got this job. It starts next Monday.'" This was in June. And she goes, "And it goes to November." And I'm just kind of freaking out internally going, my God, I have to quit my job. This is a full jump if I take this. So I went downstairs and, had a emotional moment with my friend. And then I called my boss and had a real good conversation with him, which he had known, obviously, with me going to school, that that was a desire in my heart. And I will caveat everything I say with any part of my journey is, and I tell this to everybody, your community and anything in life is so important, because there's always multiple considerations. There's a spiritual, if you are spiritual, there's a mental, there's a physical, there's a financial, you know, consideration to everything you do. And my boss was thankfully incredibly supportive. And he says, "I know that's what you've always wanted to do for since I've known you." And I'd worked with him for years. And, go for it. So I just dove headfirst. I found a place to live in 5 days and moved and jumped into the industry. And I've worked in it ever since.
Yeah, there are so many good bits in there that I just want to point out. The first thing that helped you realize what you might want to do next was you took a look at what did I like to do when I was a kid? And you kind of never forgot about that experience when you were in theater and you were backstage and you liked putting the puzzle pieces together. And that's something that a lot of people can think about if they're thinking about what do I want to do next. I don't know. I know what I'm doing right now isn't filling my cup of tea fully. Like, take a look at what you were doing as a kid. Like, is there something that lit you up? The funny thing is, like, my experience, when I look back to my childhood, I could never decide what I wanted to do. But I do think that there are a lot of people out there who've had this experience of when they were a kid, they really liked doing something, and take a look at that. The other thing that I really liked about your story is you just kind of opened it up in your mind, like, what if there was something I could do that I would care more about? What led you to actually then take action? Because I think a lot of people can have these dreams, but then never end up taking action.
I will say, and it probably differs for everybody, right?
Mm,
I had a faith walk. I prayed, which I know is not everyone's thing, but that was part of mine. And
mm,
then there was a financial component to it. I was unmarried and single. So, which makes it a little bit easier for me. I've never done solo travel before, but I decided to do a solo trip to Israel at one point. And when I tell you there is something about doing that so radically shifted that I can do things that I never thought I
mm,
could.
yeah.
It unlocked something in me, like having to rely on myself so much to figure out how to even which bus stop I was gonna use, so and maybe I hitchhiked a little bit, but,
I lived in Tel Aviv for like 4 years.
you
So for
did?
someone who's who's
Oh my
foreign to it, I
god.
could see how it can be a crazy place.
It's beautiful and it's very different from America, which is good. You got outside perspectives. And, for me, I was just a very nervous person in general growing up.
Hmm.
But when I went there, and everybody was so kind to me, I had 0 problems. It was wonderful experience. But because of that, and because I had always been a very, hesitant and anxious person, to do something like that unlocked something else for me personally,
Mm,
which seems really random, but it did. I would say everybody has micro decisions that have led up to the major one, and to always, like, examine your costs. But also, for me, one question I asked myself was, am I gonna regret this? And if
mm,
I don't do it sooner rather than later, will I regret it more? And then my friend told me too, and she just said, "If you mess up or if it doesn't go well, you still have me and you still have your family. And that also unlocked that was one of the final keys for me of knowing I literally cannot mess up to the point of not having people in my corner and
Mhm.
helping me to pick up the pieces if I fail. And that was so when I say it's my choice, but it was also my community's choice to support me in that just as much.
Yeah. There is a really nice takeaway there though, which is at some point in your life you did something that really scared you, which is traveling alone. And after that experience, it just opened your mind up to other possibilities. And that's something that I emphasize all the time to people, or it's like once you take that one action step, that one, you know, thing that might make you feel uncomfortable, it like opens up a whole new world because you build trust with yourself and then you realize, oh, I can take more steps like this. Take that action, like do the thing that you might be scared of doing. That could even look like going out to dinner alone. Anything like that will just show you what you're capable of. The second thing that you pointed out that I think is a really cool takeaway is if you really think about the worst case scenario, usually it's not that bad. For me too, I switched into software engineering and I really love this job. I've been in it for years now. But when I think about worst case scenario, I quit my job. I was working in marketing at the time. And it's like, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, I'm very lucky to have a home and supportive family members. I have skills from college. I have skills from the working world in general. When you also look at it from that perspective, it takes some of the fear away from it. At the time you mentioned, you'd come out of this year that was really difficult. You had to quit school. What drove you to then email your professor?
I had invested so much in that journey because
Mm.
I had done school online, which meant I was waking up at 4 a.m. studying, and then I would go to work, and then I would fall asleep. That was a lot of work, and a lot of money too, because I was in my 30s when my early 30s. There's not as much financial aid for you. I wish there was because I think when you're older, you're more mature and you can pinpoint things a little better. But I invested all this time and effort, and then the thought never went away. That's one thing in a lot of my decisions in life. When something doesn't go away, there's a reason it doesn't. It just had to be put off for a time.
Mhm.
And that's when I said, I'm going to roll the dice. One other side note to that is that I've also found, I don't know if this is the same for you or for other people, sometimes you plant seeds for things without even knowing it. When I had gone to school, I remember I went up to this particular professor and I told her, listen, I am paying for this schooling and it's very expensive. So I want the full experience. I was there for business. I had a goal and I wanted to get there and I wanted everything I was paying for. But she remembered that. So that was a seed that 2 years after I had seen this woman, she remembered and she hired me immediately. Like if you've wondered about something and you asked somebody a question a long time ago, they may remember it and they may have the opportunity for you. It's so
Mhm.
crazy to me how those little life winks happen sometimes that you just never would have anticipated.
Yeah, I think that highlights the importance of really just talking to people about what you're interested in. And you never know down the line when you can think back to that conversation and reach back out to that person and they make some kind of connection. Even when I was starting this podcast, there was someone that had been part of my journey when I was onboarding to my current job who I just stayed in touch with over the years, and he just really inspired me. I reached out to him, and he was like, "Yeah, like I remember you, like reach out to all these people. I think they'd be great on your podcast." It just shows the benefit of like talk to people about what you're interested in. Just plant that seed. A big learning or takeaway from your experience is just follow your intuition. If there is that nagging feeling in your brain that you're meant for more, or there's something that you really love to do, it doesn't have to look like initially this huge leap. It's kind of what you did, right? You were doing research, you decided this is what I want to do, and you were able to work full time while still going to school part time. But then also I would imagine something that drove you is that question that you asked yourself of, will I regret this when I'm older? And I always tell people to ask themselves that, because the number one important thing to stay on track toward your goal is that leverage, is that why, is that purpose. And so if you like sit down and you think about your 80-year-old self looking back at your life, you get a lot of leverage. There's so much more for me to lose by not doing it versus doing it, where there's so much opportunity to gain something from it. If someone's listening to this and maybe something big happened in their life and it feels like they can't get back to something that they started, your story shows you can get back to that even after a year of taking off. Like, there's no set time frame of when you need to accomplish something. On my YouTube, someone commented on my video, I really want to go into the film industry and I want to go back to school. And I typed back, I'm going to have a podcast coming out of someone talking about this. What piece of advice would you give someone looking to make this kind of change? Maybe it's someone who does want to be in the film industry, or just in general, someone who's thinking about changing careers.
Yeah. I think there's probably a little bit of a different answer for both. For film specifically, to our friend, kind of depends what department they want to be in. Like if they want to be in production like me, it's very much so word of mouth. Some people won't even look at resumes. They'll call you, and if they like the sound of you, and they'll say you're hired. If they're somebody who wants to get more on the technical side of film, school can definitely be beneficial. I think after having almost finished film school and then also being in the business, I will say for my job, that one professor was really great for me because she had actually worked in the industry. If that person wants to email me and ask me more specifics, I'm happy to share whatever knowledge I can. But that is definitely, you have to get in the proximity of where film is happening, which, I live in Atlanta. So Atlanta is a film city. New Jersey actually just got a new incentive. They're booming. That's another one. LA is starting to pick back up. There's a few other major, New York, if you can even get on a commercial, find a commercial, ask to be a day player, do everything they ask you to do. Be just the happiest little person ever, and I guarantee you somebody will take you with them because they want good people who will work hard. But then for big life changes, I believe you should always count the cost. I didn't make any decisions spontaneously, but when I did get that call, I always I realized that I had done a lot of groundwork before that call ever came. So I was able to make that decision very quickly because of all the things leading up to it. Play through scenarios. What's, like you said, and I totally agree, what's the worst thing that can happen? Play it out. And that way and it's in the air. And then I've played the other side again, like you said, how much would I regret and be saddened to have invested all this mental effort, physical effort, etc., in doing this and then never even trying. And that would have been tragic, honestly, because I've met so many and done so many things that mean a lot to me so far. I do a lot of lists. I'm a list person. I write pros, I write cons, I write fears, I write excitement, and I compare them. And a lot of times, if this list of, pros and excitement and joy outweighs the other one, we're gonna give it a shot because we can always start again. I think that's one of the biggest things, especially the older you get. You think you can't start again. You absolutely can. It may be a little tougher, but I think that's a lie we tell ourselves a lot because we're comfortable. And sometimes being comfortable is not a good place to live in constantly because you haven't exercised the muscles of trying new or different things. And trust me, I get it. I love my, 7 p.m. streaming show every night or whatever it is, but comfort doesn't lead to new experiences. And just as much as you want to experience new things, other people are meant to experience you too.
Yeah. I love that. I found that when I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, although it was scary, it was like also exhilarating and exciting. Then once you do something one time, the next thing becomes easier, and growth comes from discomfort. Obviously, like healthy level of discomfort. Don't like
Right.
wreck your nervous system, but
Yeah. Don't do something
yeah,
super toxic.
yeah. Actually, that brings me back to a question that I wanted to ask, which was when you did get that call and you realized, oh my gosh, I have to quit my job, I'm going to move. The groundwork that you did do to be able to say yes to that. And I know you mentioned making lists of like pros and cons and fears and excitement. Was there something that you did to like be able to more easily overcome those fears?
I would say for me, it was talking through scenarios several times, and not that I did it a ton, but I played it out in my head a lot before that call had come. If I got a call from a show out of, in Europe, would I take it? If I do that before I get the call, I tend to know where I'm going to land way faster. So thought exercises, I know that that's like one of the biggest ones for me personally.
You actually brought up something that I think is so important, which is almost just priming your brain for an experience that you might want. And it's almost like visualization where, okay, you think about this thing that you want or the scenario that you want to happen, and then you prepare yourself for it in a way. And a lot of the time, what you're focusing on is where life takes you. It's so cool. And my last question is, what are you most excited about in your career and this journey in film or even beyond that if we're thinking about like dreaming big?
Our industry is changing a lot right now, so I'm not totally sure where that's going to land me. I kind of have that gut feeling again where just I might get one of these crazy calls. I would like to continue working in this industry, but I would love to segue a little bit more to the creative side at some point if I could. I also have to play with, am I okay just continuing up the ladder that I have and being happy and satisfied with that? I do love entertainment, and I'm obviously very well versed in that arena. So it might be just producing smaller independent things here where I live, because I do love this community. I haven't fully developed the shape, but I'm excited because I'm uncomfortable and I can feel it. And anytime that happens, usually something really crazy on the other side of it occurs. Maybe I'll talk to you again in a year from now and I'll tell you what it is. But that's okay. For now, I think I'm excited to keep working with some of the teams here.
I think that's the perfect answer. It's a mix of trust and taking action and just knowing that things will fall into place if you can do those two things. And also, if something in this area doesn't work out, knowing that there's some through line in your interests and there will be another opportunity that you're going to like. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. There are so many good takeaways from this conversation. I think people are going to learn a ton from it.
Thank you for the interview. Honestly, it's a great topic. I think it needs to be talked about more because there's so much more for a lot of people, especially for me, for women. Women, you can do it.
I loved this episode so much. I also knew nothing about what goes into film production, so this one was such a cool behind the scenes look. Let's close with the takeaways you can apply to your own journey. The first is listen to your intuition. Even if it's a quiet whisper right now, give it space. Is there something nudging you toward another path? Instead of silencing it, ask yourself, what if I could do that? And start doing a little research. Second, if you're unsure of your next move, revisit what you loved when you were younger. Kade realized she always loved theater and liked putting the puzzle pieces together backstage. This led her back into film production. Third, leverage your connections and community. You would never know when a conversation will open a door. Stay curious and keep reaching out. Third, remember to leverage your connections and community. You never know when a conversation will open a door. Next, step out of your comfort zone. Anything that feels even slightly uncomfortable is helping you grow and build that self-trust. And lastly, but most importantly, ask yourself, would I regret it more if I didn't try? Picture your 80-year-old self looking back. What choice would make you proud? Every action, big or small, moves you closer to your next chapter. And if you want more support on this journey, I'm launching a membership soon with workshops on everything from finding your career purpose to standing out at work, essentially helping you navigate your entire career path step by step. If that sounds like something that could help you, use the link in the show notes to join the waitlist. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.